At number 10 today, we have silence by the royal family. In an interview with Oprah in 2021, Meghan would tell Oprah that she was silenced by the royal family. When Meghan started seeing Prince Harry and the world came to know about their relationship, Meghan was given wise advice to handle the gossip in the tabloid reports. The advice would be very clear and direct from the moment the world knew about Harry and Meghan and they were dating. She was always forced to tell the press that she had no comments to what was going on. Meghan couldn't even tell her friends or her parents. Meghan had to do everything the royal family told her to because it was put into a lens that if she did what they told her to do, they would protect her. However, Meghan would learn that after she finally married Harry that everything would start to crumble as she would not be protected. However, she still continued to lie to protect the other members of the royal family. Even though they weren't willing to tell the truth to protect Meghan and Harry, now Meghan did not say who was lying or what the royal family was lying about, but she would state that the only thing she regretted was being silenced by the family, as she believed that they would protect her. She did what they said and she believed them when she shouldn't have. At number 9, Kate Middleton. Coming from different backgrounds, it pretty much came inedible that these two would not be long lost friends, with several reports initially stating that Meghan was the one who made Kate cry over a flower girl dress Meghan wanted Princess Charlotte to wear. Meghan would come out to say that it was actually the other way around. Meghan would note that it was a really hard week considering it was a wedding and Kate was really upset about something. However, Kate would then own up to her mistakes and she would bring Meghan flowers and a note to apologize. Now, Meghan didn't disclose many details about the rift with her sister-in-law. However, she did confirm that the disagreement was indeed about the flower girl dress. Meghan went on to note that the whole incident made her cry and that it really hurt her feelings, with many publications making Meghan look like the instigator of the altercation. Kate would be painted as a victim in the situation and Meghan would then find the narrative actually quite shocking because that wouldn't be the story, and she described the situation as being the start of the rift between her and Kate. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And number 8, formality. In episode 2 in Meghan and Harry's new documentary, Meghan would recall her first time meeting Prince William and Kate, and with it she would reveal that the formality presented to the public by the royal family even carries on behind closed doors. With Meghan meeting Kate for the first time, when they came over for dinner, Meghan recalls how she wanted to feel comfortable, so she opted to wear casual clothes. She chose to wear ripped jeans and was barefoot. When she went to greet the royal couple, she went in for a hug and didn't realize how hugging was actually really jarring for a lot of Brits. This is when Meghan would understand that the formality on the outside even carried on through the inside. The royal family has this forward-facing way of being, and Meghan thought just when you could close the door and relax, she would find out that the formality still carries on over both sides, and it was really surprising to her. With Meghan wanting to do things her own way and break the formality, she found out it was really hard to connect with the family and fit in, and she found this formality to be actually just too tropical for her. And number 7, the thoughts of her unborn child. After it was revealed that certain unnamed members in the royal family actually expressed their concern over Meghan and Harry's unborn child Archie, a lot of people tried to pinpoint which members of the family actually had those thoughts. In the months that Meghan was pregnant, she would be told that Archie would not be given security, a title, and that there was also conversations with some family members that they were concerned about how dark his skin might be when the child was born. Meghan would go on to say that majority of the concerns addressed to Harry were about what it would mean or look like if Archie was born with darker skin, as the royal family believed if a child was born with darker skin, it would be very damaging to their image. While Harry and Meghan did state that it wasn't the Queen or Prince Philip that were part of the conversation, it leaves you to think that the only people that were left to have this conversation were King Charles, Prince William, and their wives. No matter who started the conversations or the claims, it's pretty serious, and it's actually really concerning that the people who came into power and who will be entering into power very soon could actually have had such hurtful conversations about an unborn child. And number 6, had to quit. After months of speculation from royal watchers, Meghan and Harry would announce their plans to step back from the royal roles as senior royals. When the couple finally had enough of being scrutinized by the press and the royal family, they would finally say enough is enough, and they would enter into several weeks of negotiations for their exit as senior and working members of the royal family. However, the couple felt extremely trapped with being in the royal family. Harry would even go on to say, no matter who you are in the royal family, no matter what's going on in your personal life, no matter what's happened, if the bike rolls up and the car rolls out, you gotta get dressed, you gotta get in there, wipe the tears away, shake it off, and be on your A game. With racism being the largest reason to why the couple stepped down from their duties and left the UK, in their documentary the couple would state that there was a lot of misinformation information about them and why they had to quit their royal obligations, and the biggest reason is because Meghan needed protection. And while the couple has gone on to say that the institution knows the full truth, the media knows the full truth, anybody in their situation would have done the same thing.
At number 5, we have the incident of the Duchess of York being caught on camera getting her toes sucked. I can't believe I just said that out loud. Sarah Ferguson was married to a certain prince whose very name isn't allowed on YouTube. That is a whole other story I'm not even allowed to talk about, but the pair ended up separating in 1992. When their marriage began to run its course, Sarah was a lot less discreet about her courting of other men, which, of course, again resulted in the royal family's snubbing. The situation escalated even further when Sarah was pictured at a beach with financier John Bryant. During their sandy getaway, Sarah was topless and reporters managed to capture some pics of Bryant sucking Sarah's toes. Gross. I don't like that. Naturally, the Queen was not having any of that and ended up banning Sarah from Balmoral Castle. At number 4, we have Princess Anne and her dog, who seemingly enjoyed attacking people. As the only daughter of the late Queen Elizabeth and the sibling of Charles, surprisingly, this is one princess who I didn't think could land in any scandals. From her charity work to her seemingly kind heart, it's almost shocking to know that she's made our countdown. And yet, back when Anne and her husband were placing their dogs into a car after a walk around Windsor Great Park in 2002, one of the dogs, an English Bull Terrier, managed to escape and savagely attack 2 boys who were enjoying their bike ride in the park. The couple were taken to court and served an $880 fine that they were ordered to pay. This marked the very first time a senior royal had ever been charged with a criminal offense. In a turn of events that was greatly upsetting to the victims' families, the dog was allowed to live, and reportedly the next year or so ended up mauling one of the Queen's most beloved corgis, which the royal family probably took more seriously. That's not a fact, but they seemed pretty self-interested, so it wouldn't be surprising. At number 3, we have Princess Margaret's string of affairs. The Queen's sister, the late Princess Margaret, managed to grasp the interest of the public due to her interesting lifestyle choices. Margaret never once feared living her life however she pleased, as most shouldn't, and was widely known to be a heavy drinker and smoker since she was 15. Despite her marriage to Anthony Armstrong Jones, a photographer, in 1960, Margaret didn't quite slow down her player lifestyle. She started an affair with a gardener in 1973 who was reportedly 17 years younger than her, and she wasn't able to escape the press in 1976 when a picture of her and her reported lover, Roddy Llewellyn, made the front page and headlined the now discontinued news outlet News of the World. This was just the start of Margaret's string of affairs that rocked the boat in her marriage, and by the time 1978 rolled around, the former couple's divorce was finalized, but I'm sure she was perfectly fine. In at number 2, we have first cousins Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. The running joke surrounding the royal family all mixing their DNA and bearing children together has been a constant thing for as long as the royals have been. However, some people don't actually know that this banter is factually correct for some of the couples of the royal family. Cousins and more distant relatives often get betrothed to each other. Something about royal bloodlines, which is thankfully a very archaic way of thinking. Even the late Queen Elizabeth and her husband were related. Philip and Elizabeth shared a great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. Philip was a direct descendant of Princess Alice, the 3rd child of Queen Victoria, while Queen Elizabeth is a direct descendant of Queen Victoria's oldest son, who became King Edward VII. Speaking of Victoria, her and her husband Albert were actually first cousins. They got married in 1840 and shared 9 children in their time together. The thing is, royals always married others of similar status in the world, and since historically, royals would make alliances through marriage, bloodlines are interconnected all over Europe. Not really a secret, but still, ick. At number 1, we have Princess Anne's son-in-law who spent a night in a dwarf tossing club. Yes, this one is strange, and yes, it did very much happen. Despite Mike Tyndall not being a royal by blood, his everlasting marriage to Princess Anne's daughter, Zara Phillips, decrees that he is on the ins with the royals. However, his connection to the family could not save the English rugby player from the backlash that occurred after it was reported he spent one of his nights in 2011 at a, quote, dwarf tossing club in New Zealand. According to articles from the time, Mike and his team went to celebrate their win against Argentina at the club. And despite Mike insisting he nor his teammates actually threw a dwarf, just him being present in such a location was enough to spark massive outrage in the media. And Understandably so, that was kind of messed up.
At number 10 we have Beyonce. If you take Cheat Sheet's word for it, Beyonce obtains a massive chip on her shoulder in regards to how her fame lines up with that of the powerful English monarchy. Her once humble upbringing seemed to shatter when she was invited to meet the royals and showed up late with Jay-Z. According to the news source, the pair arrived following the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which is considered rude among other things. In short, the royal family's time was disrespected, and in turn they were reportedly upstaged by Queen Bee's own swarm of media attention. And this wouldn't even be the first time Beyonce has been caught up in an uptight diva royal-esque behavior either. Apparently, the Houston native's reported on-shoot demands were once exposed by an apparent close source, and let me tell you, it wasn't looking too good for Bey back then. Things like her supposedly requesting that her dressing room transition into a fully baby-proof space and that it be furnished all white, and her demands of a large additional room with a massive vanity and stage lights so her appearance team could work under the best circumstances to ensure she looked her greatest. Beyonce also allegedly asked that all her food be served on a crisp white tablecloth and that the temperature needed to remain at 72 degrees Fahrenheit to keep warm. Alongside this, Bey also supposedly specified Jo Malone candles or comparable grapefruit candles to be on hand and 2 bars of Irish Spring soap. I mean, if any of this is true, Beyonce low-key makes the royal family's demands seem like light work. What is one thing you like and dislike about the royal family? And if you haven't already, tap the notification bell for more, it really helps our channel grow. At number 9 we have Kim Kardashian. One thing that many noted during Kim's time being married to rapper Kanye West is that she became a lot more refined, making strides of improvement in how she communicated at that point. Rather than throw direct shade at the royals to end up having to deal with immediate backlash, the reality star took a different approach on how she thought that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were not being perfect. However, she quickly rained in praises for them in multiple ways afterwards. Her underhanded comments were sugarcoated by the nice things she had to say following. Still, Kim has a history of backhanded compliments, which has been proven many times through her media presence, and things she says in passing that she believes means no harm. Like when she spoke about one-time feuding partner Taylor Swift's music in an interview. She began with, "They're all super cute and catchy," only to later retract that by admitting that she had to, quote, "look in my phone to get a name." Seems like they're not that catchy then, Kimmy. At number 8 we have Katy Perry. Now, Katy has been known to have some questionable fashion looks in her days, and she has seen her fair share of media slamming due to the publicly declared poor styling choices she's made for her own attires. However, she refused to hold back when she criticized Meghan's Givenchy wedding gown, which was designed by Claire Keller and featured a simplistic cut with 3/4 length sleeves and an off-the-shoulder neckline. The silk number, of course, is drastically different from Kate Middleton's lace dress from 2011, which had the internet in shambles. Some agreed Meghan's dress was too basic and didn't do the Duchess justice, while others believed it perfectly suited Meghan's classic style. But Katy, she was on the end of the hate train that was not in favor of the gown. Katy was asked about her opinion on the dress during the first night of the American Idol finals, admitting, "I would have done one more fitting. I'm never not going to tell the truth. One more fitting, but I love you." Katy also didn't forget to add that she thought Kate won over Meghan's look with her modern Alexander McQueen number. And despite her super shady negativity, Katy proceeded to positively support Meghan afterwards because of her womanhood strength and humanitarian work. At number 7 we have Wendy Williams. Now, Wendy is surely not impressed by anything that Meghan has achieved in her days as Duchess, nor how Wendy believes Meghan has benefited from marrying a member of the royal family. Wendy has expressed, without directly saying it, that she is not a fan of Meghan and had taken to bashing Meghan on her former show ever since it was announced that Meghan and Harry were seeing one another. Wendy has made previous comments about how she does not believe the marriage between the pair would last, since Meghan seems to constantly be surrounded by, quote, way too much drama. According to Wendy, back in 2017, when she boldly spoke of the Duchess, she said that the royal bound marriage was a random princess who is just looking for a game to play, as she seems to be a bit of a wild card. Yikes. Even the massive security of the Grand Castle couldn't protect Meghan from Wendy's harsh words, it seems. At number 6 we have Piers Morgan. Now, according to Piers, he was ghosted by Meghan and took immense pride in letting the world know what the most recent addition to the royal family had rumoredly done to him. Apparently, while they shared a set together, the Duchess issued a tweet to him stating that she was a big fan and couldn't contain her excitement about getting to work with Piers. Their relationship seemed to be on the up and ups for a good friendship at that point, as they continued to text and email and even met at a local pub. However, after this, apparently Piers reported that Meghan straight up ghosted him, and ever since then, Piers has made it his mission to shade her. As early as September of this year, Piers has once again lashed out at the married royals in his latest news column following the death of Queen Elizabeth II. The TV presenter has never been shy to bash them before, Meghan specifically, and even walked off Good Morning Britain after the dust of Meghan's 2021 Oprah interview issues settled. His article for the New York Post came with the winning title, "Harry, if you really want to honor your dad, nix your salacious, tell-all, and rein in your royals trashing wife." In the write-up, Pierce stated that Harry had spent the past consecutive years, quote, dishonoring his father, as well as that someone who was quite close with Charles informed Pierce that the new King of England was deeply hurt and utterly bemused by the actions of his son, supposedly. Pierce added if Harry goes ahead with this horribly ill-advised book, he will betray his pledge to his grandmother and show that his commitment to honor his father is just more hot air from someone who, like his wife, loves to preach one thing but practice another.
Number 5. Marriage to Diana. Charles's marriage to Diana didn't exactly get off to the best start, especially when we think back to their 1981 engagement interview. When he was asked if he loved Diana, he looked very nonchalant and just said, "Whatever love means," which caused a lot of people to scratch their heads. And years later, Diana actually admitted that the moment had traumatized her. When the couple wed in 1981 in front of a global television audience of more than 750 million people, they seemed to be perfect for each other. But behind the scenes, the marriage had extreme problems, and it became apparent that Charles was having an affair with Camilla. A heartbroken Diana exposed the affair in an infamous 1992 interview, saying, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." Charles publicly admitted to being unfaithful in his own interview, and the couple divorced in 1996. There was already public outrage growing against him, but it all came to a head when the princess was killed in a Paris car crash in 1997. From that point on, there were vitriolic outpourings in the press against both him and Camilla, and his popularity sank to an all-time low. So the British public, who was still very protective of Diana, still haven't been able to forgive Charles for how he treated her during their ill-fated marriage. Number 4. Too political. Blame the British press or Charles's self-created scandals over the years, but the more salacious or negative details of his life always seem to make the headlines. In 2015, the Black Spider memos caused quite a stir for him. The collection consisted of 27 memos that he sent in 2004 and 2005, lobbying British Prime Minister Tony Blair for the policy changes that he'd hoped for, including promoting alternative medicine and even asking to replace military helicopters. This was a pretty serious scandal because members of the royal family are supposed to stay out of politics and remain neutral, especially the ones who were always destined to be king. But Charles is often not shy about sharing his opinions on political matters, and this has led to him being criticized for it, possibly to the detriment of his future reign. And then in September of 2021, Charles had a brand new scandal to contend with. The chairman of the Prince Foundation, Michael Fawcett, was accused of bribing a Saudi billionaire with knighthood and UK citizenship if he was willing to donate to the foundation. So far, the investigation is still ongoing. Number 3. They prefer William. William, Kate, and their 3 children are adored all throughout England. In fact, a survey by BGM Research reveals that nearly half of the British public wants Prince Charles to step aside and give the throne to his oldest son. The couple have now been married for nearly a decade, and The Atlantic called their relationship a fairy tale, with their picture-perfect family and their lack of scandals. Plus, Prince William and Prince Harry are the most liked royals since records began, so it makes sense that people want to see them on the throne. But experts believe this would be nearly impossible. The bigger question now is how long King Charles will decide to reign now that he has taken the throne. Will he do the job for a couple of years before abdicating and handing the crown to his eldest son? Throughout their lives, the younger generation of the royal family has tried to find a balance between the fast-changing society that they have now and the rigid institution that is the monarchy. This tension has practically torn the brothers apart. While William leads a life of traditional duty, charity work, and military pageantry, Harry resides outside LA with his American ex-actress wife Meghan, who seems to be more interested in Hollywood than Buckingham Palace. The brothers, who were once very close, are now barely on speaking terms. Number 2. Taj Mahal photo. One of the most iconic photos ever taken of Diana was shot during a visit to India with Charles in February of 1992. The couple were expected to visit the Taj Mahal together, but Diana went on her own, which led to the headline-making photo that was a nail in the coffin for the new king's public image. It became the defining and memorable image of the tour. But why? Well, Charles practically abandoned his wife to visit some random architecture school, while Diana sat alone on a bench in front of the most famous monument of love. At the time, she told reporters her visit there was a very healing experience, but she did say, "It would have been better if both of us had been here, but my husband has to be in Delhi." The image was so powerful because it became the embodiment of Diana's loneliness and isolation, and really solidified Charles's image as a villain, opening him up to harsh criticism for not accompanying her. Years later, in 2016, William and Kate visited the exact same place and recreated the photos sitting side by side. In fact, the memory of his mother must have been very overwhelming there, because William actually started crying and was clearly overcome with the emotion of her memory. And coming in at number 1, too outspoken. Charles has been outspoken on a whole range of sensitive issues, from genetically modified crops to homeopathic medicines and architecture. Interestingly enough, he has always been a strong climate change activist and has been speaking out about it since 1968. Charles was a prominent backer of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord and discussed the subject with Donald Trump over tea in December of 2019. This has made him a lot more of a divisive figure than his mother, who barely cracked an expression during her 70-year reign, let alone expressed a single opinion. But Elizabeth's legendary ability not to offend was more strategic than many people realize. Charles has also said some outrageous things throughout his lifetime, like, "I'm not really good at being a performing monkey. I'm not prepared to just perform whenever they want me to perform on that sort of score." And "That's called a microphone. It's a big sausage that picks up every time you say." But he also angered quite a few people when he infamously said, "Do you seriously expect me to be the first Prince of Wales in history not to have a mistress?" And let's not forget that notorious interview where he insisted that he was faithful to Princess Diana up until he felt the marriage was broken. Number 10. Prince Harry. Since stepping down from royal duties, Prince Harry has made his disdain for Charles pretty apparent, but he took his family beef to the next level when he criticized Charles's parenting on Dax Shepard's Armchair Expert podcast. The 36-year-old claimed that his father handed down a cycle of genetic pain and suffering to him, which is why he and his wife Meghan Markle moved to Los Angeles. Harry says that they got out of the royal family to break the cycle. Quote, "He treated me the way he was treated. So how can I change that for my kids? We as parents should be doing the most we can do to try and say, you know what, that happened to me and I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen to you." Harry went on to describe his life as a royal as a mixture of The Truman Show and being in a zoo. In fact, Harry said that he had debated leaving the royal family since his early 20s because of what it did to his mom, which contradicts the narrative that Meghan was the one who wanted to leave. Number 9. Meghan Markle. During her explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey, the Duchess of Sussex claimed that someone in the family had expressed concern about the complexion of her child's skin. It was then that the allegations started to snowball, and Prince Harry told the Star that the incident happened right at the beginning of the pregnancy and left him a bit shocked. Meghan told Oprah, "In those months when I was pregnant, all around the same time, we have in tandem the conversation of, he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born." Then a royal book by Christopher Anderson revealed that a source close to the family claimed that it was Charles who made the comment during a conversation over breakfast with his wife Camilla on the day that Meghan and Harry's engagement was announced. He allegedly asked Camilla, "I wonder what the children will look like," and lowering his voice asking, "I mean, what do you suppose the children's complexion might be?" So it wasn't exactly subtle. Number 8. Trevor Noah. The Daily Show host made it clear that he is not a fan of the new king at all and decided to make fun of his pen complaints. The British monarch got the whole internet laughing with his bizarre behavior because it was all caught on camera. The first time he frantically urged staff to clear the extra pens from his desk while he signed his accession proclamation. The second time was when he got really mad over a leaky pen, saying, "I can't bear this bloody thing. What do they do every stinking time?" But Trevor Noah thought he was being ridiculous and said, "What the hell was that? Did you see that thing that he did? He's also the ruler of an animal kingdom." I love how Charles says the pens leak on him all the time. You're literally the king of England, dude. If you don't like the pens, get different pens. I'm not an expert in the monarchy, but I'm pretty sure the hierarchy doesn't go Prince William, King Charles, and then the guy who buys the pens. Number 7. Jesse Armstrong. The creator and writer of HBO's Succession decided to use his acceptance speech at this year's Emmys to take a dig at King Charles. Jesse Armstrong graced the stage twice, once to pick up an award for his writing on the show, and again with the entire cast and crew to receive the Outstanding Drama Series award. He said, "A big week for Successions. New king in the UK, this for us. Evidently a little more voting involved in our winning than Prince Charles." Even in a room full of Americans, the audience was very shocked at this risky joke, and gasps could be heard on live broadcast. When there was a bit of an uncomfortable silence, the show's lead actor Brian Cox told him, "Keep it royalist," but Jesse kept going and said, "I'm not saying we're more legitimate in our position than he is. We'll leave that to the other people." According to eyewitness accounts, there was very little laughter in the room and most people just felt plain awkward. Number 6. Tony Blair. The royals are expected to understand that party politics and individual politicians are totally off limit for public comment. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair was so furious about Prince Charles's behaviour during his time in Downing Street that he reportedly complained about him to Queen Elizabeth. He accused Charles of crossing the line and meddling in political matters by trying to influence government policy. The ex-Labour leader was said to have become exasperated by his interventions over agriculture, the armed forces, architecture and homeopathy, and even genetically modified foods. Then scandal erupted for both men in 2015 when they became embroiled in the scandal known as the Black Spider Memos, which was a collection of 27 letters that Charles sent from 2004 to 2005 lobbying the British PM for the policy changes that he hoped for. This was a pretty big controversy considering that members of the royal family are supposed to stay out of politics and remain neutral, especially the ones who were always destined to be king.
Number 5. Brothers ask Charles not to marry Camilla. As more details of Prince Harry's hotly anticipated memoir, Spare, is revealed, there have been a number of moments from the royal past that are coming up into the spotlight. Among these reports, Harry would claim that he and his brother had asked their father not to marry Camilla. Back in 1996, Charles would famously divorce Princess Diana following several years of formal separation and a messy, public scandal surrounding Charles's extramarital affairs with Camilla. After the divorce, Charles would go on a date with Camilla, but their relationship would remain highly controversial. When the question came, Harry and William proposed to the king that they would welcome Camilla into the family, and the only thing they asked in return was that he never married her. Harry would say that the brother said, "You don't need to get married again." Harry would also share his first impressions of his stepmother, the Duke, and he described her as being calm or bored, and he even expressed his concerns that she would be an evil stepmother, but then he concluded that she wasn't. For years there has been speculations as to how William and Harry may have felt about their stepmother. Now we're finally starting to hear the details, and I wonder how Charles now feels that Camilla knows that his kids told him not to marry her. Number 4. Substance abuse. In one candid moment in Harry's memoir, he would claim that he took some substances and that a journalist even threatened to publish a photo of him using the substance. Being 17 at the time, the prince would recall that he was offered the substance during a hunting weekend, but after taking it, he didn't really find it much fun. Harry would say, "It wasn't much fun, and it didn't make me feel particularly happy the way the others seemed to. But it did make me feel different, and that was my main goal, to be different." Harry admitted when he was 17 he was pretty much willing to try anything that would upset the established order. However, the prince would then describe the incident as being one of the biggest mistakes of his life, and he also felt so ashamed after doing the substance that all he wanted to do afterwards was make things right. Later in the memoir, Harry would even detail how a journalist would threaten to expose him using the substance and that they would publish a photograph of the Duke using it. For the journalist eventually admitted that the photo didn't even exist. Number 3. Camilla leaks stories. Prince Harry has accused Queen Consort Camilla of engaging in a campaign to get closer to the crown by marrying Prince Charles. Alongside this, Harry has also accused her of leaking stories to the press about Harry and their first meeting. Harry has also alleged that Camilla sacrificed him to improve her own public image. In his book, Harry would claim that Camilla campaigned for her marriage to Charles in 2005 so that she could potentially become queen. And while Harry and William wanted to promise their father they would welcome her into the family, Charles would not respond to their request that he would never marry her. And one of the most explosive extracts of the book book, Harry would go on to accuse his stepmother and Angela Kelly of leaking stories to the press that included details of the hunting trip he went on in Germany, where he got exposed to those substances. Harry also revealed that it was only when he got the backing from William is when his father took things seriously and finally confronted her on it. But to sell stories to the press about your own stepson in order to save your own reputation is kind of just sad and petty, and it makes you just shake your head knowing that Charles would even want to marry a woman like that. And he should have never left Diana. That was his biggest mistake. Number 2, the last conversation with the Queen. One of the most heartbreaking stories in Harry's memoir is when he revealed his emotional final words to his beloved grandmother, the Queen, at Balmoral, just hours before she passed away. In his autobiography, Harry would describe that he whispered into her ear and told her that he hoped she was happy and that she would finally be able to reunite with Prince Philip, who passed away a year earlier. Harry would also go on to tell his grandmother that he admired her for having carried out her duties until the end. Harry would then say he scrambled to Scotland to see his grandmother on September 8th last year after Buckingham Palace had announced that she was gravely ill. However, he failed to reach the estate before she passed away at the age of 96. In a moving passage, the Duke would describe that he learned of the Queen's passing after he checked the BBC News website. Upon arriving at Balmoral, he was greeted by Anne, the Princess Royal, who took him upstairs to the room where his grandmother was still lying. Harry would then say, "I advanced with uncertainty, and I saw her. I stayed still watching her carefully for a good while." And that's when he whispered in her ear. And while Harry's last words to the Queen definitely made majority of us cry, it proves that even after everything, his heart remained pure, and he would always serve even if he wasn't a part of the royal family any longer. Coming at number 1 today, we have Prince William, the arch nemesis. Now, we all knew the rift between Harry and William was pretty bad, and I don't think any of us really realized how bad the rift between the two brothers really was. As siblings fight, that's natural. But to claim your sibling as your enemy is something you only really see in Disney movies. In Harry's memoir, Harry would refer to Prince William as his beloved brother and arch nemesis. When questioned about the quote in a clip from an interview with Good Morning America with anchor Michael Strahan, Harry would hold nothing back. In the interview, when the quote came up, Harry would explain that there was always going to be competition between the two brothers. Harry would then go on to explain the strong words he had by saying, "I think it really plays into or was played by heir." He went on to refer to Prince William's role as future king while he moved down the line of succession as Prince William and Kate had children. While Harry never wanted things to get to where they are today, all he wants at the end of the day is a family and not an institution.
At number 10, we have King Charles and his raunchy phone calls with Camilla. Now, this one is pretty gross, honestly. We are full aware of King Charles's marriage to his previous wife Diana and how it was not a good time at all. There was infidelity on both sides here, but the one that really peed people off was Charles's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. During the time that Camilla and Charles were still with their husband and wife respectively, the two did have some rather interesting secret phone calls. 1992 was the year that Charles and Diana officially separated, but it was also the year when one of these phone conversations were leaked to the public, and Charles had quite a few interesting things to say during that conversation. Things that I don't think I'm even really allowed to say here. Let's just say it had to do with feminine hygiene and call it a day. If you are interested, feel free to research because I'm moving on. Hey, if you think the royal family's dark secrets are juicy, hit that like button. It really helps out our channel. Thanks, guys. And with that, at number 9, we have Diana. Just the whole situation. And in a way, this also kind of extends to the more recent Meghan Markle controversy. You see, Diana was a very open individual. The people loved her, and she had no issue being honest about her hardships. Among the royals, Diana was the most human, and she would make this fact known by being open and honest about her human struggles, especially being a part of the incredibly structured, judgmental, and old-fashioned royal family. In November 1995, the princess gave a television interview during which she spoke of her unhappiness in her personal life and the pressures of her public role. Specifically, Diana suffered from depression and bulimia, which she talked about in length, and it honestly accrued her a lot more love from the people than she already had. And in turn, it also turned the public against the royal family even more, especially as Charles and friends of his would use her words against her, claiming that anything she accused Charles of was caused by her psychological issues. It's kind of truly disgusting and adds to the reason some people believe the monarchy should be abolished. established. At number 8, we have people's doubts about whether or not Charles is actually Harry's biological father. With all the scandal that was surrounding Charles and his former wife Diana, it was starting to look like there couldn't possibly be any more reports about them that could surface. That was until a few people scratched beyond the surface in one of Diana's tell-alls. In 1995, in an interview on BBC's Panorama with a journalist named Martin Bashir, Diana admitted to an affair she carried out for 5 years with a military man named James Hewitt. There was intense speculation once Diana passed that James was potentially the biological father of her son Harry and not Charles as originally believed. And despite their ever so prominently similar looks, James denied being Harry's real dad. James detailed that it wouldn't have been possible because Harry was conceived prior to the start of his and Diana's relationship. Still, people be speculating. At number 7, we have the Queen and her secret cousins. Aired on Channel 4 for the British network in 2011 was a documentary called The Queen's Hidden Cousins, where it was revealed that there was a scandal that managed to conceal itself from the eye of the public for decades. Way back in the 1940s, the stigma around mental disabilities was very prominent, and it wasn't seen or understood as well as it is now. Obviously, with Diana, this stigma reared its ugly head, but the Queen's first cousins, Catherine and Nerissa, fell victim to their physical and mental issues as well. The nieces of the Queen Mother were placed into a mental institution in 1941 and remained there for the rest of their lives. Because of this, Nerissa and Catherine were said to have been cut off from the lives of the royal family forever. A nurse in the documentary who oversaw the cousins made it very clear that not once did the royals ever go to see Catherine or Nerissa. This claim was obviously disputed by the royal family, but I obviously don't doubt it. At number 6, we have Princess Beatrice, who dated a criminal. While she was 7th in line for the throne and held the title of being the Queen's granddaughter, Beatrice was also a socialite and philanthropist. However, she also made some fairly sketchy dating decisions in her past. For example, back in 2006, when the princess was a mere 17 years old, Beatrice started seeing American playboy Paolo Lawuzo. However, ahead of his relationship with Beatrice, Paolo was indicted for taking the life of a 19-year-old man named Jonathan Duchatellier. Jonathan reportedly passed away as a result of the injuries he sustained from Paolo in 2002. The incident was said to have taken place after Jonathan had confronted Paolo about his disrespect towards females at a party. However, the charge of manslaughter was eventually dropped and then reduced. This, however, did not stop Paolo from breaking the terms of his probation to woo Beatrice with a trip to the French Alps. Unsurprisingly, these two did not last.
Number 5, Beatrice's boyfriend. The Queen's granddaughter, Princess Beatrice, is 9th in line for the throne now. She's well known for being a socialite and a philanthropist, but she has certainly made some sketchy dating decisions in the past. In 2006, when the princess was just 17 years old, she started dating an American playboy called Paolo. This relationship was very troubled. Not only was Paolo older than the teenage princess, but he had a dark past. Prior to his relationship with Beatrice, Paolo was arrested for the manslaughter of 19-year-old Jonathan Duchatellier. Well, apparently he decided to confront Paolo for disrespecting women at a party, so he got beat up. Amazingly, the manslaughter charge was dropped and reduced to a lesser charge, but he even broke the terms of his probation while dating Beatrice by taking a trip to the French Alps. Talk about red flags. But thankfully, their relationship didn't last long at all. Number 4, Princess Anne's marriage. As the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II, Princess Anne's romantic life has been under a microscope since she was young, despite the fact that the princess lives a relatively private life away from the constant scrutiny that often follows a member of the royal family. She married Lieutenant Mark Phillips in 1973 at Westminster Abbey in a highly televised and anticipated ceremony, but their marriage was deeply troubled, and Phillips ended up having an affair with New Zealand art teacher Heather Tonkin. This resulted in a daughter being born in 1985. The marriage was in complete shambles, but struggled on for 4 more years before Princess Anne and Mark Phillips separated in 1989. The divorce was finalized a few years later in 1992. Interestingly enough, Anne remarried later that year, becoming the first royal divorcee since Henry VIII. Their wedding was much more reserved than the first one, with only 30 guests and no cameramen. And 30 years later, they are still happily together. Number 3, Margaret's heartbreak. Princess Margaret famously fell in love with Peter Townsend and was so dedicated to the man that she actually planned to marry him. But the relationship was doomed from the beginning, as he was 16 years older than her and already married with 2 children. While Townsend eventually divorced his wife in 1952, the Church of England's then strict rules about remarriage after divorce forced Margaret's hand. Under the royal Royal Marriages Act of 1772, the princess required the Queen's permission to marry before the age of 25. Although she had turned 25 that August, she still needed the Parliament's approval, and they had already made it clear that they would never offer her consent. She would have been able to marry him if she gave up her title and rights of succession, but Margaret was also aware that it would have never been allowed by the church either. She released a heartbreaking statement saying, "It might have been possible for me to contract a civil marriage, but mindful of the church's teaching that Christian marriage is indissoluble, I have resolved to put these considerations before any others." Number 2. Princess Diana's struggles. In 1992, Andrew Morton published his biography on the Princess of Wales, called Diana: Her True Story. It contained explosive details about Diana's eating disorder, something that was long rumored in the press but never covered this extensively. It turns out his source for it all was Diana herself, who passed the author confessional tapes. Quote, "The bulimia started the week after we got engaged and would take nearly a decade to overcome. My husband put his hand on my waistline and said, 'Oh, a bit chubby here, aren't we?' And that triggered off something in me and the Camilla thing. I was desperate." Diana revealed that she was driven to an eating disorder by being trapped in a loveless marriage and the pressure of being in the public eye. But her raw, candid confession sent shockwaves through the world at a time when eating disorders were rarely talked about openly. To have a global superstar do so and on such a stage challenged a major societal stigma. And coming in at number 1, Prince John. Born on July 12, 1905, Prince John was the youngest son of King George V, the Queen's grandfather. The young boy reportedly suffered from epilepsy, and the royal family was not particularly interested in having him live a very public life as a royal because of the stigmas behind the disorder. So they deployed a very familiar tactic to cope with what they thought would have been a scandal. They hid the child away from public view. Royal biographer Christopher Wilson has noted that some family trees completely leave out Prince John's name. He explained that if they feel they have somebody that isn't up to scratch, they want to write them out of the history books. And this happened in the case of Prince John. The moment that he died, we hear no more about him, which is incredibly sad but not unusual behavior when it comes to the British monarchy. Number 10. Unpopular. Now that Charles is king, his new role is going to be daunting, and he has a real uphill battle to restore his tarnished reputation. Queen Elizabeth was overwhelmingly popular and well respected, but her son, on the other hand, has a major image problem: strained family relationships, endless scandals, and lingering allegations of racism against him. Charles confronts those challenges at the age of 73, the oldest monarch ever to take the throne in a lineage that dates back 1,000 years, alongside his wife Camilla, who was equally controversial and universally disliked. In short, the British public sees the new king as weak, vain, and ill-equipped for the role of sovereign. Although Charles has taken a stand on important environmental issues such as sustainability and climate change, he has fallen pitifully short on animal welfare issues. He has also been ridiculed for admitting that he talks to plants and obsesses over hating modern architecture. But more than anything, he got a whole lot of backlash for speculating about the complexion of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's future children. He allegedly asked Camilla, "I wonder what the children would look like," and lowering his voice, asking, "I mean, what do you suppose the children's complexions might be?" So the allegations of racism were pretty hard to ignore. Number 9. Short reign. With Queen Elizabeth II's death on Thursday, King Charles III has now become the oldest person in British history to be king at age 73. But the fact is that Charles's reign is inevitably going to be far shorter than Queen Elizabeth's. So the fact that King Charles will have a much shorter reign concerns some people. Why? Change on a grand scale can be scary, and people inherently don't like the idea of instability, which is something that they never had to worry about with Queen Elizabeth. Throughout the nation, she was a symbol of stability and order, even managing to outlast 12 US presidents. So after all, at Charles's age, some might question that he will be unable to tackle royal tours with the same vigor as his mother, and with the 1937 Regency Act, there are only 4 family members that can act on the king's behalf when he is sick, incapacitated, or out of the country. But that's a major problem because currently 2 of those 4 people are out of action. Prince Andrew is now disgraced from his scandal surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, and Prince Harry is ineligible because he lives abroad. So it's a bit of a messy situation. Number 8. They hate Camilla. A survey from BGM Research revealed that only 20% of people think Camilla should take the title of queen. Given that Prince Charles is now married to the other woman, that may also make people feel less inclined to get behind him as the reigning monarch. Back in the 90s, one of the biggest scandals to rock the British royal family was when Charles was caught having an affair with Camilla. The transcript of their phone sex was published on the front pages for days and was so controversial at the time because he was still married to Princess Diana and she was married to Andrew Parker Bowles. The transcript reads like something out of a used bookstore romance novel. The incident ultimately broke Camilla's 20-year marriage and publicly humiliated her husband and children, and played a major role in Charles and Diana's divorce, which would come only a few years later and was requested by the Queen herself. So it's likely that the new king will never be able to fully live down the scandal. Number 7. Questionable parenting. Charles has always had a bit of a rocky relationship when it comes to being a father to his two sons William and Harry. In fact, after an heir to the throne had been secured, Diana said that Charles had been hoping their second child would be a girl, and obviously it wasn't. In her biography, Diana said she knew Harry was a boy, but kept it a secret until after he was born, as Charles actually had a negative reaction, saying, "Oh god, it's a boy," and commented on his red hair. But this is nothing compared to the hospital incident. In 1991, 8-year-old Prince William underwent emergency surgery for a skull fracture after being hit by a golf club to the head while playing with schoolmates. The young prince was kept overnight at London's Great Ormond Street Hospital following an hour-long operation. Diana spent the night sleeping in a bed set up near William's room so she could look after her son, whereas Charles took a much different approach. Rather than stay and comfort his wife and injured son after a 15-minute visit, the prince left the hospital to go to the opera. It's no surprise that when Buckingham Palace informed the press of the prince's decision to keep his previous plans but keep in touch with doctors, he was completely bashed by the tabloids. Number 6. Bad attitude. Many Brits think that Charles won't be a good king and fear that he just doesn't have what it takes to rise to the occasion. Whether it's because of his personality traits or capabilities or something else entirely, if people don't have confidence that he will do a good job, it will be hard for them to get behind him. In fact, when it comes to best-selling books about the real life of the royals, you'll see that Charles isn't exactly praised by biographers. In fact, some of his private rants and tantrums have been made public, further damaging his reputation. It was 2005 during a holiday in the Swiss Alps, just a few days before his wedding to Camilla, and the new king's general frustration boiled over and he made a rather awkward comment to Harry and William because he didn't seem to realize that there was a microphone nearby. He answered the reporter's question politely and then through gritted teeth muttered under his breath, "Bloody people, I can't bear that man. He's so awful, he really is." And yes, the microphones picked up every word. It was just plain awkward, but it goes to show you just how much Charles loves to complain.
At number 5, we have Amy Schumer. Actress and comedian Amy Schumer dished her own plate of steaming hot shade when she slyly spoke on a radio show about her disdain for Meghan. Apparently, while making an appearance on Sydney Fitzy's and Wippa's radio show, they spoke about the wedding, where Amy made it clear how she felt Meghan's wedding dress didn't actually belong to her, and made jokes about how she had to greet foreign delegates on her big day, which were supposed people she had neither seen nor met before then. Amy also curated a few underhand compliments about how bad of an experience it must have been for Meghan. However, regardless of the now lack of shock for her invite, I'm sure Amy would have positively shown up had she been on the invitee list to attend the then highly anticipated royal affair. At number 4, we have Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell was seemingly blindsided about not making the guest list for Prince Harry's wedding, and in return, the British star decided to cast some very public and not so subtle shade about the royals in return. Obviously, Simon felt as if he was owed an invitation, especially because Kate Middleton's trusty mailman had made the guest list, and he later used his public forum to reveal that his invite was potentially lost in the mail. Yet, according to Simon, it was also his own fault why he was snubbed from the royal wedding in the first place, and he blames his snarky comments as the reason why. It seems he rattled the royals with his insults about the late Queen Elizabeth that may have landed him in hot water at the time. He once told Jay Leno, "No, I haven't been invited to the royal wedding. I may have said something to the Queen about her hat when I met her. I guess karma is a you-know-what." At number 3, we have Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry's comedic method of expressing his thoughts about literally anything is quite a skill. Still, his reference to a circus act for Meghan and Harry's wedding had the public unsure of how to react. At the time, Jerry spoke with E! News about the occasion, and alongside his jabs, he also sneakily commented on William and Kate Middleton at the time. This was during promotions for his England stand-up concert in June, where he was featured on Daybreak for the country's ITV station. While the interviewer, Adrian, mentioned the then upcoming nuptials of William and Kate, Jerry shocked possibly the entirety of America by saying, "Well, it's a circus act, it's an absurd act. You know, it's a classic English thing of let's play dress up, let's pretend these are special people. We'll all pretend. That's what theater is." He also dished out some backhandedly sweet words about British theater before commenting more on the royals with, "And that's what the royal family is. It's a huge game of pretend. These aren't special people, it's fake outfits, phony hats, and gowns." And I mean, it's safe to assume Jerry didn't make the invite list for either weddings nor any preceding royal events in his current time for that matter. At number 2 we have Lily Allen. Don't be fooled by Lily's sweet voice because sometimes, like in this instance, she says some less than sugary stuff. When she discussed the most recent royal wedding in her highlighted E! News segment, Lily ranted about how she failed to secure a spot in the invitee list while Joss Stone received an invitation. She later attempted to cover up her bitterness by pretending that she was not affected, making sure to vocalize that she was far too busy to attend regardless. Still, it's clear by her bringing it up that she was a little bit touchy about the topic and didn't hesitate with her shade for the royals when she finished with, "Well, you can quote me as outraged. Why does Joss Stone get an invite and not moi?" At number 1 we have Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy was the former leader of the Labour Party as one of their left-wing politicians. In his time on top, Jeremy directly challenged loads of people in power and individuals with authority throughout the time span of his career. In light of this, Jeremy faced media criticism in 2015 for his refusal to belt "God Save the Queen" during a memorial event. Shortly following this, an older interview of his managed to resurface, and in it he stated that his quote, "preference to have the royal family completely dissolved."
Coming at number 10 we have William attacks Harry. Prince Harry has said that he saw red mist in his brother Prince William's eyes when his older sibling allegedly attacked him during a confrontation over the younger Duke's relationship with Meghan Markle, with this being one of several revelations the Duke has made in his new book Spare. Harry would allege that the Prince of Wales grabbed him by his collar before ripping his necklace and knocking him to the ground. This would happen after William had called the American actress difficult, rude, and abrasive. While Harry has explained that the incident happened all so fast, the incident would cause Harry to land on a dog bowl that would crack under his back, and pieces of the bowl would then cut into Harry in the process. With Harry lying on the floor for a moment, feeling dazed, he then got up onto his feet and told his brother to get out. The incident is said to have taken place at Nottingham Cottage back in 2019 when Harry was living there, and it started when William arrived to complain about Meghan. And now it's starting to make a whole lot of sense on why Meghan and Harry skipped out on spending Christmas with the royal family that year. Coming at number 9 we have Diana hid for years. We were all shocked when we learned that Harry would be discussing some never-before secrets surrounding his mother's passing in his new book, and let me tell you, Charles definitely has his hands full with this. In Harry's forthcoming memoir Spare, Harry would state that for years he thought his mother went into hiding after the world came to learn about her passing. Harry would also say he admitted this thought to his brother Prince William after his brother missed a yearly ski trip to Colchester because he hated posing for photographs. Harry would then note that William even admitted that he used to believe the same thing. Now the world would come to learn of Princess Diana's passing in August of 1997 after she passed away due to injuries she obtained in a car crash while she was in Paris. Harry would then claim that he even believed that Princess Diana had faked her passing to escape the scrutiny, as he would recall that her life had been miserable as she was constantly being hounded, harassed, lied about, and even lied to. So he thought she staged the accident so she could create a diversion and run away. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming at number 8 we have Diana's passing. So after Diana passed away in a tragic car accident in Paris, Harry would open up about how he learned about her passing. Writing about his mother's passing, Harry would state that he was only 12 years old when he would be woken up by his father after he came into his room and sat on Harry's bed while putting a hand on his knee. According to the Duke, Charles then said, "My dear son, Mom has been in a car accident. There have been complications. Mom has been seriously injured and has been taken to hospital. My dear son." Harry would go on to imply that Charles kept calling him his dear son, and when he was speaking really quietly, it would give him the impression that Charles was in shock. However, the whole thing just seems pretty sad because Harry said he didn't even cry and his father didn't even hug him during the conversation. He just placed his hand on his knee and told him it would all be okay. This is when also Harry would notice that Charles had already broken the news to his older brother William. It just seems a little strange the way Charles went into his room to break the news, and it makes you question question if there was anything really fishy that went on with the passing of Princess Diana. Number 7. Prince Philip's passing. The start of Harry's memoir, Spare, would begin with him detailing the sad moment his grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth II, told him that his grandfather, Prince Philip, had passed away. Just days before Philip's funeral, Harry added that he woke up to 32 missed calls before having a brief conversation with the Queen, in which she informed him of Philip's passing. Harry has also recalled the harrowing conversation in which the late monarch said, "Harry, grandfather has passed away." Prince Harry has also described the moment he was told of Prince Philip's passing and how he turned up to Fogmore Gardens in Windsor after Prince Philip's funeral. He would also state it was at this moment alone he would reflect on how sad it was. Fogmore Cottage was to be his and Meghan's home for life before they left royal duties behind. Harry was among 30 attendees at Prince Philip's funeral service in Windsor in April of 2021, as the lockdown restrictions at the time meant a strict limit on the number of people that were allowed to attend. Number 6. William and Kate approved the Halloween costume. Another royal bombshell moment Harry exposed in his memoir is that Prince William and Princess Kate were actually the ones who encouraged him to wear the infamous German uniform he donned at a 2005 costume party for Halloween. Harry recalled the decision to wear the uniform was the biggest mistake of his life in his 2022 Netflix docuseries, Harry and Meghan. When Harry recalled picking up the offensive grab in his upcoming memoir, Spare, he would say, "I went up and down rows, sifting through racks, seeing nothing I liked. With time running out, I narrowed my options to tow a British pilot's uniform and a sand-colored German uniform with an armband and a flat cap." Harry then recalls that he called Kate and William to ask what they thought, and they picked out the offensive German uniform. So Harry rented it plus a silly mustache, and after getting the costume, he went back to their house and tried it all on. He then noted that both Prince William and Kate howled in laughter as they pointed fingers at him, rolling on the floor in laughter. Harry would then apologize again for his poor choice of costume, and he went on to say he was really sorry if he caused any offense or embarrassment to anyone.
Number 5. Princess Diana. When Prince Charles wed Diana in 1981 in front of a global television audience of more than 750 million people, the couple seemed to be perfect for each other. But behind the scenes, the marriage had extreme problems, and it became apparent that Charles was having an affair with Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall. A heartbroken Diana bravely decided to expose the affair in an infamous 1992 interview, saying, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." Subsequently, Charles publicly admitted to being unfaithful in his own interview, and the couple eventually divorced in 1996. With his admission of guilt, there was already public outrage growing against him, but it all came to a head when the princess was killed in a Paris car crash in 1997. From that point on, there were vitriolic outpourings in the press against both him and Camilla, and his popularity sank to an all-time low. So the British public, who is still very protective of Diana, still haven't been able to forgive Charles for how he treated her during their ill-fated marriage. Number 4. Richard Rogers. The award-winning British architect had made it known that when it comes to his career and livelihood, his biggest enemy is King Charles, who has used his power and influence on several occasions to step in at the last minute and object to Richard's designs. In one instance, Charles personally wrote a letter to his client, the Prime Minister of Qatar, another royal, to say that Richard's design was too modern to be built on a site that was so close to Christopher Wren's 17th century Chelsea Hospital. So the architect was kicked off the job, and the British architectural establishment was up in arms. Richard said, "I don't believe that the Prince of Wales understands architecture. He thinks it is fixed at one point in the past. He occupies a privileged position, and he should not use that to damage the livelihoods of the people that he disagrees with." While it's common knowledge that Charles has a huge disdain for modern architecture, which is probably classist in some way or another, it seems as though he is not above ruining someone's career over his taste in buildings. Number 3. Boris Johnson. The former Prime Minister and the new reigning monarch always had a rocky relationship, but they got into a major spat when Boris started pushing the controversial Rwanda asylum plan. The policy would have allowed the government to remove asylum seekers who crossed the channel to the UK and send them to Rwanda to claim asylum there instead. In short, Boris thought it was a great plan, and Charles said that the idea sounded appalling. The former British PM hit back at his comments, saying that most people could see that criminal gangs need to be stopped, stopped, and that it's the job of the government to stop people breaking the law. But their relationship really began to sour, and Charles eventually invited Boris to his estate for a meeting, which was a complete disaster from start to finish, as Boris reportedly didn't show him any respect, and there was clearly a lot of tension between them. Number 2. Nigel Farage. The broadcaster and former politician was quick to criticize King Charles's opinion on the controversial Rwanda policy. Farage took to Twitter and slammed his comments, writing, "Unless Prince Charles wants to destroy the monarchy, he had better shut up fast." Not only did he disagree with his point of view, but the fact that he expressed it at all, considering that yes, he is a royal and should not be making his political opinions public. But Farage really came under fire after posting a clip that seemed to mock Queen Elizabeth's death. He shared a 5-second clip to his TikTok account, which has now been viewed more than 6 million times, with the caption, "The Queen is dead, long live the King." In the video, Nigel looked and sounded incredibly sarcastic and said, "The Queen is dead, long live the King, sad day but we now have a king." He also shared the post on Twitter. No one was really sure what he meant by it, but a lot of people thought it was inappropriate, considering how little emotion he showed while making the announcement. And coming in at number 1, Princess Catherine. The royals are known for their discretion and their decorum, so you might not know that the new King of England did not get along with his daughter-in-law at all. Although Kate and William have been an item for over a decade, Charles reportedly didn't embrace her when she was first introduced to the family and did not approve of their relationship. Part of the reason was because they were immensely popular, and Kate and William would send the media into a tailspin every time they left the palace. Their whirlwind romance began just a few years after Charles married Camilla, and unfortunately the older couple didn't seem too happy about sharing the spotlight with the younger couple. In 2011, the pair flew to Canada and LA on their first official trip as a royal couple. They reportedly hoped to impress King Charles, but all he seemed to care about was the fact that they posed in too many tasteless photos. So Kate's relationship with her father-in-law was rocky from the beginning. Number 10. Harry's misconduct. Back in 2005, Prince Harry attended a costume party dressed as a Nazi. This is a risky enough outfit for anyone, let alone a British royal. Of course, pictures from the party were leaked to the press, who plastered it all over their front pages. Harry, who was 20 years old at the time, really should have known better, but he still made a public apology from his royal offices, which read, "Prince Harry has apologized for any offense or embarrassment he has caused. He realizes it was a poor choice of costume." But the papers held on to the story for quite some time, and it caused widespread outrage worldwide. Then 4 years later, in 2009, the prince was dealt another huge blow to his reputation when a tape emerged of him using racial slurs against members of his own army platoon. In the video, you can hear the prince using offensive language as well as racist terms. Once again, Harry had to make a public apology to try and save the royal family from further embarrassment. It didn't work, and the footage was relentlessly replayed around the world. If you're loving this video so far, please hit that like button, it would really help us out. Number 9. Prince Andrew's friend. The disgraced prince is no stranger to controversy. In 2011, it emerged that he was good friends with convicted sex offender and American financier Jeffrey Epstein. He was married to Sarah Ferguson, who came forward confirming their friendship and revealed that her ex-husband had asked Epstein to clear some of her debts. Although he later reported that he had cut all ties with Epstein, Buckingham Palace came under new pressure to explain their relationship with the American in 2015. The royal family has since tried to distance themselves from Andrew when his disturbing ties became public, and there was a civil case brought against him. Not long after that, it was announced that he would be stripped of his military titles and royal patronages, and would no longer be allowed to use the title His Royal Highness in any official capacity. The trouble is that no one really knows the full extent of Andrew's involvement with Epstein, but the public mood still seems so set against him that he will likely not be able to return to public life for quite some time. Number 8. The Hidden Cousins. In 2011, an explosive documentary was released called The Queen's Hidden Cousins, which revealed a scandal that has avoided the public eye for decades. In the 1940s, mental illness was not understood as much as it is today, and so the royal family viewed it as an embarrassment when 2 of the Queen's first cousins, Nerissa and Catherine Bowles-Lyon, were born with severe learning difficulties. Born in 1919 and 1926 respectively, Nerissa and Catherine were never able to be a part of the royal family. Instead, they were incarcerated in a mental institution in 1941 and remained in care there for the rest of their lives. In the documentary, nurses who oversaw them categorically stated that no members of the family ever came to visit the 2 sisters, who were unable unable to articulate speech, but apparently had a great spirit about them. When the story of the sisters' existence was published in 1987, a scandal instantly erupted when it emerged that the royal family had apparently erased 2 of its members from their lives entirely. Number 7. Diana's biography. It's no secret that Prince Charles and Diana had a terrible marriage, but unlike many royals, Diana was vocal about her private affairs. We know that she felt like a total outsider within the royal family and felt like a prisoner trapped in a loveless marriage. In Diana's biography, she recounted a desperate time when she felt truly shut out by her husband. Quote, "Charles said I was crying wolf. I said I felt so desperate I was crying my eyes out, and he said, I'm not going to listen, you're always doing this to me. I'm going to go riding now. So I threw myself down the stairs." She ended up falling right at the Queen's feet, and as it turns out, Elizabeth and Charles had nearly polar opposite reactions to her cry for help. According to Diana, the Queen comes out absolutely horrified, shaking. She was so frightened. Diana said that she was quite bruised around the stomach, but when Charles came back from riding, he just dismissed the whole incident and carried on out the door. Number 6. The hospital incident. Charles has always had a bit of a rocky relationship when it comes to being a father to his 2 sons William and Harry, although nothing really displayed his attitude as a parent more than the hospital incident in 1991, when an 8-year-old Prince William underwent emergency surgery for a skull fracture. The little prince was hit on the head with a golf club while playing with schoolmates. The injury was so serious that he was kept overnight at London's Great Ormond Street Hospital following an hour-long operation. Princess Diana spent the night sleeping in a bed set up near William's room so she could look after her son, whereas Prince Charles took a different approach entirely. Rather than stay and comfort his wife and injured son, after a 15-minute visit, the prince left the hospital to go to the opera. It's no surprise that when Buckingham Palace was informed of the prince's decision to keep his previous plans but keep in touch with doctors, he was completely bashed by the tabloids.
And number 5. Handing over passports. During an interview with CBS, Meghan would tell Oprah that she experienced a lot after marrying Harry, and it really made her mental health deteriorate. Throughout Meghan's and Harry's relationship, they were highly criticized by the British tabloids. Meghan would reveal that she was once approached by members of the royal family about getting Meghan help, but she felt like she couldn't do it within the castle walls. After marrying Harry, Meghan would have to hand over her keys, passport, and driver's license, as the palace attempted to make her trapped inside Kensington Palace and making it so she couldn't leave to get help on her own. When Oprah asked if she was considering checking herself into a mental facility, Meghan would explain no because she was asking the royal family if she could do it. Meghan would then say she just couldn't go by herself, as when she joined the family, she wouldn't see her passport, driver's license, and keys until her and Harry decided to leave. She was trapped in the palace and couldn't get the help she needed, and the palace staff denied her the help she needed. Meghan would even find herself reaching out to one of Princess Diana's best friends, as she felt like she was the only one who could understand her situation. And number 4. Secret ceremony. Just 3 days before their official ceremony, Harry and Meghan would actually get married in secret. Just 3 days before their televised royal wedding in 2018, according to Meghan, they would secretly get married in their backyard because they both wanted to get back down to the basics and have a moment for just the 2 of them. Since their actual wedding day was to be televised, Meghan and Harry felt like their wedding wasn't actually for them and it was just for everyone else. So the couple decided to call the Archbishop and said, this spectacle is for the world, but we want our union between us. So the vows that we framed in our room are just the 2 of us in the backyard with the Archbishop of Canterbury. With the Archbishop claiming that the legal wedding was on Saturday, the couple just exchanged vows in the backyard, but it wasn't a legal wedding. Under English law, there needs to be at least 2 witnesses to take place in a registered venue for a marriage to be legit. So it's clear that the couple just wanted to do something for themselves before making this thing actually official, and it's actually a pretty sweet gesture if you think about it. And number 3, Harry's A-list. When Harry was one of the world's most eligible bachelors, he had a number of different girlfriends that never seemed to stick. In Meghan and Harry's new documentary, Harry would speak about the media scrutiny that brought intense pressure on his relationships, and he would compare it to things that he saw as a child with his mother, Princess Diana, after she divorced Prince Charles. Harry would say that she was one of the most powerful women in the world, but after the divorce, she was completely exposed. Harry would then explain that he has seen things, learned things about how women marrying into the institution will have to understand it comes with pain and suffering. So Harry said he didn't think he would ever meet someone who was willing and capable to withstand all the baggage that came with him. With his relationships only lasting a matter of weeks or months before it was splattered all over the tabloids, when he met Meghan, he was terrified that she would be driven away by the media. Meghan would then later reveal that Harry actually has an A-list of potential qualities he would want want and need in a future partner. With Harry refusing to reveal any of his list, he would go on to say that Meghan was the list, as she was a needle in a haystack. She was someone who not only shared his values of service, but she also had experience with being in the public eye. And number 2, secret stay at the palace. When Meghan and Harry first started seeing each other, they wanted to keep their relationship a secret for as long as possible so they could get to know each other without the media intruding. With Meghan describing their long distance relationship as exciting, relaxed, and easy, she knew that if she wanted this to last, she would have to do something. So she decided to implement this 2-week rule, which pretty much meant that they both had to see each other in person every 2 weeks. Now, to fly under the radar, it was somehow much easier for Meghan, who was living in Canada at the time, to fly to London to visit Harry in secret. So every 2 weeks, if both couples could manage, they would visit, and Meghan would fly to London to stay with Harry at Kensington Palace, so they could get to know each other without anyone taking photographs and it becoming news. However, it was a risk to get Meghan into the palace, as getting her through the police barrier into Kensington Palace is a risk itself because you never know who you could trust. So Meghan and Harry had to become really sneaky just to get her into the castle walls. The pair would also do this for 4 months before their news of being together officially broke in November of 2016. And at number 1 today, we have Meghan's career. When news first broke that the Suits actor Meghan Markle was dating Britain's most eligible royal, the headlines would respond with racism, with headlines joking about Meghan being straight out of Compton or that her mother lived in the slums. It became a huge factor to why Meghan and Harry wanted to leave the royal family. With the royal family believing that Meghan's career being a sticking point in the beginning, they were incredibly impressed that Harry could land such a beautiful woman. The fact that he was dating an American actress, on the other hand, definitely clouded their judgment more than anything else. And in the beginning, as the family would say, oh, she's an American actress, this won't last, with Meghan adding that her being an actress was the biggest problem. She would say that there is an idea in the UK that causes them to typecast anyone from Hollywood. Although we all know that race would become the bigger issue on why they chose to opt out of the royal family, it's clear that the royal family definitely didn't trust Meghan because of her career and where she was from.